Hi, I'm Erin with Me Time. One of our subscriptions, Perfectly Pieced, is all about piecing and quilting in the hoop, right on your home embroidery machine. Ready to get started? So, how do you piece and quilt in the hoop? Let's start by talking about the anatomy of a block. First, you've got your template. This is going to show everything your machine will stitch. This outside line is the trim line. In other words, when you're done stitching the block, you're going to trim the block on the trim line. Then you've got the seam line. This is going to show on the back of your block when you're done, and you will stitch on this line to sew your blocks together, giving you a perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance. Next is the batting tack down line. This is just a tiny bit inside the seam line, and when we place our batting and trim it down here, it means the batting will not be in your seams and your quilt will lie beautifully. In the center, we have the template. These are all the pieces of your block. The template is numbered to show which order you place and stitch your pieces. Okay, we're ready to get started. I've got my lightweight cutaway stabilizer ready to go. I've got my instructions printed off. I've got my pieces cut. If you're looking for this particular block, this is the free sample block. If you're subscribed to Perfectly Pieced, you'll find it in your Me Time digital library on the Me Time Delivered website. Okay, we've loaded the embroidery file onto the machine and we're ready to get started. First, we're going to stitch the batting placement line, stitch the batting down, and trim it close to the line. Here's the batting placement line. We're going to place the project batting completely covering the placement line. Now we'll trim the batting close to the stitch line. We've stitched out the piecing template. I did that in a dark color so you'd be able to really see what's going on. Okay, we're ready to place fabric number 1. The first piece is placed right side up, covering the whole piece 1. I've stitched piece 1 down. Now I'll trim it close to the stitch line. And we're ready to place piece number 2. Piece number 2 and every piece thereafter is going to be placed right side down because we're going to flip it after we stitch it. Are you ready? Here comes the magic. We're going to flip piece number 2. Okay, now we're going to press our seam. Pressing is crucial to making your block perfect. Now we're going to stitch the next placement line. Now we're going to trim the fabric close to the stitch line. We're ready to place our next piece of fabric, and you notice I have white, so you want to make sure you use Kimberbell fusible backing on the back so you don't get any shadowing. We don't want to see this red fabric through behind our white fabric. Now you'll notice I'm not using paper tape. That's always an option. If it makes you feel better or you find that your pieces are moving around, that's a great option. We're going to flip this seam and press it. We're ready to stitch the next trimming placement line. Okay, now we'll trim the fabric close to the stitch line. And we're ready to place our next piece, right side down. Line it right up on that placement line and make sure it goes to both ends. Okay, we'll flip and press. On this next piece, I'm going to use a piece of paper tape. And the reason is because I have this little corner and I don't want it to get caught on my presser foot. Okay, now I'll remove my paper tape and trim. Okay, I'm on piece number 6. One more to go. Right side down. Line it up, and we'll flip and press. I'm going to use a piece of paper tape again. I've got that little corner sticking up. Okay, are you ready to place your last piece? Trim down this placement line. Okay, here we are. We're ready to flip the last piece and see how our block looks. Let's press it down. Look at these perfect triangles. Next, we'll stitch the trimming line. This is going to show you the outline of the block. Okay, now you can see our block. We're not ready to trim it yet. Now the rest of the magic happens. We are going to quilt this block right in your embroidery machine. No need to load another file. No need to take it to another machine. We're ready to go right now. Here we are. Check out this quilting. This is custom quilting designed just for this block. Let's pop it out of the hoop and we're ready to trim. I'm going to use Kimberbell's orange pop rulers to trim this block, but if you don't have them, that's fine. This orange pop ruler is 4.5 by 4.5, and my block size is 4.5 by 4.5. I lined up the stitch lines, the outside of the block, with the inside of the orange pop ruler. All right, let's remove the extra fabric and stabilizer. And voila, I have a perfect 4.5 by 4.5 inch block. Let's flip this block over. Okay, we stitched this with dark gray thread so you can see this really well. I've got the outside of my block. I've got my stitch line. In other words, when I stitch my blocks together, I'm going to stitch right on that line and I will have perfect 1/4 inch seams. And then just inside that stitch line is that batting tack down line. Remember, because of this batting tack down line, the batting will not be in the seam. Brilliant. So now what are you going to do with this block? Anything you want. Put them together and create a beautiful 18 by 18 inch pillow. Sew them together into a quilt. The nice thing is the quilting is done and the batting is already in the block. So now you're going to stitch your blocks together and you're done. Voila! Thanks for joining and go and enjoy some well-deserved me time. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more machine embroidery content.